You had a bad dream last night, Kyle? Well, I had a good one. So we're going to talk about my thing because nobody wants to be bummed out today by your nonsense. DarbyCast Wildcard Friday. If you're new here, leave. Okay, moving on. Dreams are an interesting access point into our subconscious, which is why, occasionally, they are worth analyzing. Not all the time, right? And a lot of people don't remember their dreams because they get shit-faced before bed. Do a little damage to the devil's lettuce. Jazz cabbage, Kyle. Soft J, Yaz Kabaj. You don't remember dreams that well if you're tanked all the time. If you want to really enhance your dreams, you throw on a nicotine patch. And that's a tough sell to people who don't typically consume nicotine or want to invite the potential to be held hostage in the recesses of your own mind with really confusing imagery. Some people don't want to wake up with the question, why was that owl wearing a suit? What does that mean for me? Whereas heroes aren't afraid to ask the big questions. It means there are business opportunities if you stay perceptive and have your head on a swivel. Owls can move their head like 270 degrees. That's what owl dreams mean, especially owls in suits. That's how I knew it was business. If it were an owl in a bikini, that's a romance thing, Kyle. But I had a dream about body surfing in a swamp. Could have been Louisiana. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't have been Louisiana. Best swamps around, right, Kyle? Waves in a swamp, though, uncommon. We got to dig through and look for the messages there. I think that means politics is not going well. Things are not the way that they're supposed to be. That's my interpretation. And for the people who listen to this show consistently, you just nodded your head in agreement and you said, your analysis is really on point. I wish you'd interpret my dreams. And I wish I could do that for more people. But I would get bored of that after about a day. Oftentimes I get excited about things and then I'm like, nope. The internet's done that to us. But back to my serious dream, which everybody's eagerly anticipating the biggest portions, because waves in a swamp, different, but not exciting. Let me paint you a better picture of this swamp and what's really going on. No flies flying around, which are typical of swamps. A lot of foliage in the water, so you kind of have to dodge it a little bit. That's what I was doing in my dream, which quite obviously means politics in a circumspect way. That's what that portion of the dream means. It's the last wave of the day, the last wave of the dream. And off in the distance, I see an albino saltwater crocodile. And it's humongous. It's old, okay? It's moving pretty slowly, but I want to avoid it. As we all know, this albino crocodile represents destiny, inevitability. As much as I wanted to steer clear of that saltwater croc, Hank, you just get the sense that that was his name, right? But as I'm gliding into the shore and I'm thinking about avoiding Hank, I'm moving towards him like a homing missile. This is like an 18-foot saltwater croc, okay? More dinosaur than it is reptile. And right before I slam into this thing, my friends on the shore are saying like, watch out. But right as I am about to plow into Hank, I wake up. Does Hank represent destiny or does he represent my past? Can it be both? Do we all have a Hank in our life, in the future or in the past? The answer to that is yes. What if Hank's the double dragon? What if he's the future and the past? What if he's the present in some kind of way as well? Son of a bitch, right? That's what we all thought when I said that. Right, Kyle? The future, uncertain. The past, shrouded in ambiguity as it relates to our memories. Now, here's where it gets good. The other day, my folks surprised me for no reason in particular. They said, let us take you out to lunch. So we ate lunch. Compelling story, right? The best part, though, is they brought a couple boxes of my writing from when I was a youth, which gives me better insight into the past so I can effectively move forward and kill Hank in a way that's tasteful. Maybe get a film crew there and sell it to the History Channel afterwards. Get Morgan Freeman to narrate. I don't do a good Morgan Freeman voice, Kyle, so I'm not going to try. Look at how honest I am today, Kyle. Good job by me. A little self-call. But this morning I cracked out a journal from 1997. And I think we're just going to kind of read into this and maybe relate it to Hank, or maybe we're just going to enjoy the way I was processing the world in 1997. This is a bit of a self-indulgent episode of the DarbyCast on the surface. However, Kyle, there are going to be messages that are applicable to absolutely everybody, no matter where you're at in life. Have you had a dream before? Boom, this episode's already ringing true with you. Do you know what a crocodile is? Boom, episode is landing. We're here together as a unit. Me, Kyle, you, a DarbyCast doctor, or a DarbyCast doctor in training who's currently asking themselves, what is happening? Friendship, scholarly pursuits, and something mystical all at once. And there's no problem with that unless you're a coward. So let's start. September 8th, 97. Over the summer, I went to Lake Arrowhead. I really enjoyed swimming in the lake. I also went to Alaska. There were so many moose, I got tired of seeing them. Now let's take a pause. How honest is this writing? I also saw 6 grizzlies. I saw a lot of caribou as well. I was 75 feet away from a flock of sheep. The next day, I wrote, I have 5 people in my family. I have a dog, 2 cats, 10 fish, and that's all my pets. No nonsense, all business. I also have a computer. It is like family to me. There it is, right? So concerning. The moment that my life was becoming inseparably linked with the Matrix, Kyle, 10 years old. Actually, I was 9 at the time. I really like my mom best out of all my family. I do not know why. Now I know it's because she's amazing. How about this passage a week later, just entitled Fears? I am afraid of lice because they suck your blood. I'm also afraid of burglars. I'm scared of my brother. I'm also scared of dying. I think the sum of all fears would be if my brother got lice, became a burglar, and threatened to kill me. I'm glad that never happened. My brother's a pretty good guy. Now, there's probably some of you that are saying to yourselves right now, I don't care about this at all. And to that, I say, fuck you, because there is value in this if you're an intellectual. And this should prompt childhood memories, which will allow you to retroactively slay Hank, your Hank, whatever Hank looks like for you. Maybe Hank is a dragon. Maybe Hank is a whale that has laser beams attached to his fins and a nuke for a tail. Whenever that Hank wants to go completely scorched earth, it's just one big murder-suicide. He's not making it out of a nuclear blast. But what does that tell you about yourself, right? That's how we analyze. Now, here's a nice entry a couple days later. I remember how fun it was to be a baby. First off, what kid remembers life as a baby? I don't even know if that's possible, but difficult to move into the future without a handle on the past. Kyle, you probably didn't journal a lot as a child because you're just not that guy. Nobody cared about you enough to ask you to write down your thoughts. It's not necessarily a you problem, but it also is. Let's get into I get angry when. I get angry when my dad is using the computer and I want to play some sort of computer game. Technology was addictive even back then. In 97, it was turning me into a monster. The kids don't stand a chance right now. I get angry when my brother loses the computer for both of us. I really loved the computer. How about that? I get angry when people waste my time. That's still true. In my dream, Hank was wasting my time because I could have hit the shore and then had a barbecue with my friends. How about this entry called guilt? I feel guilty when I do something wrong. I usually hide when I feel guilty. I feel guilty when people point and say, you. I also feel guilty when I accidentally hurt someone. I feel guilty when I beat up my brother. My brother is older than I am, and he is so much bigger than I am, even to this day. Talk about having a pure heart from a young age. We all feel guilty about certain things. Even ritualistically murdering an oversized saltwater crocodile named Hank. Even if it's the right thing to do, sometimes we have mixed emotions, right, Kyle? Nice little entry called My Idea of a Good Time. My idea of a good time is when my mom is not at home and I can party. 4 exclamation points. First, I stock up on food. Then I make a break for the TV. If nothing is on, I go and play on the computer. Once I get bored with the computer, I go to the TV again. What the hell, right? This just breaks my heart, not just for former me, but for kids these days. Digital opiates. The opiate crisis, obvious. The digital opiate crisis, also obvious, but nobody calls it that. Sometimes I ask my dad to go slot car racing. My favorite track is the big one. I think the small track is harder because it has so many sharp turns. What a fucking metaphor. It's easy to focus on the big tracks in our lives and lose sight of the small tracks. What are those? Relationships. Difficult to nimbly navigate relationships in this economy and our current culture. Take a minute, pause, think about a relationship. Too many curves in that track for any racer's taste, but it's important. And it's in that slot car arena for a reason. What I'd like to be for Halloween. I'm probably going to be a doctor with a deformed tongue. I hope this is shedding a ton of light on your childhood and your dreams and the way you process things. If it isn't, get out. Go somewhere else. Here's an entry called My Wildest Dream. My wildest dream was when there was a table loaded with food and drinks. I was super strong and I could fly. Loud music was playing and all my friends were there. Just then, somebody called me and said, "You just won $100 billion. I decided to buy brains as good as Albert Einstein. Then I bought a house with a force field so no unexpected visitors could come. that speaks to all of our wants to sometimes be left alone. This next entry is going to ring true with a lot of you, so just kind of brace yourself. If you're in the car, pull over. If I could be a bird, I would be a falcon. I would be able to blend in with trees and pulverize my enemies. What an amazing kid I was, Kyle. You were nothing like this, and you know it. I could fly over the ocean and hunt for the tastiest fish. Some of you are probably hearing this and saying, where has this been in my life? I don't think about what it would be like to operate as an autonomous leader who was also a bird. But that lane's open, right? You can do that today. I was scared when I was 3 and the cat tried to claw me to death. I was scared when I was 4 and my friend came over to spend the night for the first time. We decided to kill the monster in the bathroom. We went to the bathroom with plastic shotguns and pistols. Unfortunately, my friend got scared and called his mom and went home. I had to face it myself. Crash, bang, boom. Then I went to bed. How important is it to face our fears? Bet you didn't think you were going to get a message like that today. Nice little reminder. No problems there. Short entry. The sun is very warm. The flowers smell wonderful. The ground is a little musky. Here's a thoughtful entry. It isn't easy growing up. It isn't easy growing up with a brother like mine. He always puts me down and says he's the best skateboarder, even though I'm a lot better than him. I don't think anybody would like to be in my shoes. Great perspective, but we do need adversaries, rivals to level us up. How about that? My parents don't understand why Jimmy's sister is going to try to beat me up. What the fuck was that about? Who was Jimmy? Who's Jimmy's sister? She wouldn't have stood a chance. What was she thinking? Another important entry, about 17 pages past the first time I mentioned this. I'd like to be a falcon. February 3rd, 1998. This entry is called El Nino. This weather is so freaky for me. There are trees falling down, and some places are flooding. But it can be fun just to walk out in the rain and jump in puddles. I like rain, but when there is too much rain and wind, it is not so fun. Let's talk about challenges for a second. Acceptable difficulty rocks, but too much, that can make you feel overwhelmed. Maybe the catchphrase that we carry with us forever after today can be used in just about any context is, looks like we got a little bit of an El Nino on our hands. El Nino conditions are flaring up. There's something positive about El Nino, though. Picture body surfing towards Hank, but then a tidal wave sweeps him into another zip code. That is a not so subtle reminder that great things can come from chaos. El Nino conditions. Kyle, was I like wise beyond my years at 9? Get a load of this. A potato chip can be yummy, but if it has too much flavoring on it and it's bent out of shape, it's not my favorite. Why don't you just noodle on that for a second today, Kyle? Unsurprisingly, a couple pages later, I am back to birds. I've learned many things from my bird studies, and I hope to learn a lot more about birds this school year and my entire life. At the beginning of the year, I really wasn't interested in birds. But since then, I've been fascinated by birds, especially by that falcon that was having a battle with a crow. Why am I podcasting, Kyle, when it was so obvious that my path was ornithology? I should be a sea-level executive with the Audubon Society. Maybe that ship has sailed, maybe it hasn't. Could be a second career. Kyle, could I pursue it in parallel with this? Doubtful. With birds, you got to be all in. Now let me turn this on you, the DarbyCast doctor, the listener. What would it take for you to go all in on blank? How about that? There's a nice little question for you. How do we access this space more regularly, Kyle? That's right. We reflect on dreams, and then we synthesize it with memories. And then we set our trajectory for success. Now here's an upsetting entry entitled "The Man with a Tail." Once, two men were walking. One of them had a tail. The two men were walking beside a river. Not just any river, though. A magical river. And then the entry stops. What the hell? What could have been, right? Bet you that tail would have come in handy if things really went down. Thematically, that speaks to the idea that it's okay to be different because unknown circumstances provide opportunities for freaks to show up and surprise everybody. Quick little entry, early December of 97. I'd like to be better at yo-yos. What kind of hobbies have you just left on the back burner? Imagine if you liked yo-yos as a kid and you had stuck with it. Right now, you would be printing money on TikTok. Guaranteed. Just meditate on that today, okay? My mom and dad taught me how to cook eggs, how to use the oven, how to use a lawnmower, how to use a chainsaw, and how to use the steak knives. I could have become a chef or a complete predator. I didn't become either. So sometimes you just got to follow your own path and not let your parents define you. How about that? And now we're at the last page of the journal and there's a grade from the teacher. A-. Keep working at your thoughts and ideas. All good. Fuck you. But also thank you. A- was the perfect grade for that. And here's why. It was great, but this teacher didn't want me to get lazy and think that I just had it made, even though this teacher probably took this notebook home with her and cracked out a bottle of wine every night. Started to get pretty concerning. Her husband wasn't okay with the way things were going. I'm lucky in that my imagination was never snuffed out. I still get to access it regularly. I still get to speak from the heart because we've got a great podcast here. All of us, you, me, Kyle. But would you be comfortable telling a colleague at your work, I couldn't avoid a saltwater croc in my dream last night, and I'd really like to take you out for a cup of coffee and tell you all about it? Do you have that? Could you confidently go up to your boss and say, falcons matter in a huge way? In fact, I just bought the website falconsmatter.org. What would your boss say to that? Could you go up to your friend and say, I thought El Nino was supposed to come every 4 years, but my whole life feels like El Nino every day? It has for a while, and there's no end in sight. I used to enjoy walking in the rain and splashing in puddles, but I want out. What does a friend of yours say to that? If they are not aligned with that, you slap them. You ever go up to a stranger and say, what are your thoughts on murdering a monster in a bathroom with a plastic shotgun or a real one? Would you be comfortable sleeping over at my place after something like that? Or would you bitch out and call your mom? It's a big character check for you. That's what you say to somebody. Could you do it? What's the major takeaway from all this? You, like I, probably had a lot of stuff figured out when you were younger. But then enter that godforsaken computer and the television and analytical writing about crap that nobody cared about. Fill in the blank assignments. And you go to a job that you don't like. And there's a woman who works in HR. And it takes every fiber of your being not to over-index on your inner falcon and pick her up and drop her in the ocean. What am I trying to say here? Dreams give us imagery, the kind of imagery that we used to experience often as youths. Kyle, is that a word? Youths? Youths. Young people, Kyle. I'd like you to use some imagery today to create meaning and figure out some messages that may have been not the most obvious. Maybe today, as a metaphor, you turn into a falcon, you fly right out of that swamp. Hank is a non-factor. I want that for all of you today, but I think that's going to do it. Let's wrap it up. DarbyCast, Wildcard Friday.